to the NormalCast, everybody, the official movie talk podcast of Normalcy Studios. I'm Matt,
I'm Adam.
and we're here talking movies, news, lists we come up with. See, I actually did a decent job on the professional intro. I was expecting it to go off the rails, but now I don't know how to end it because I never come up with an ending for it.
Yeah, we never got this far.
Yeah, this is never. We should just stop trying to be professional. I don't think it's very fun. But anyway, we've got many wonderful headlines to cover this podcast, and I can't think of anything to do but just to dive right into them. And this first one is full of joy and only good things.
It's a movie?
No, it's
Movie
Zack
cast?
Snyder. It's Zack Snyder decided he was at a good old, for those that don't know, director of Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Watchmen. He was speaking at some events being hosted by who cares, and there was a Q&A, and at some point it came up about the whole Batman killing thing, and boy did he feel like he needed to put his opinion out there, and it's dumb, and I'm gonna read you some of the things he said, because I think they were talking about Watchmen. And he essentially told people, you're living in an effing dream world if you're mad about Batman killing. So he said, people come up to me like, oh, Batman killed a guy. I'm like, really? Wake the F up. So, and none of these were censored when he said them, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's what I'm saying about, once you've lost your virginity to this effing movie, talking about Watchmen, and then you come to me and say to me something like, my superhero wouldn't do that. I'm like, are you serious? I'm down the effing road on that. You know what I mean? It's a cool point. Look, I'm 100% fine with it. It's a cool point of view to be like, my heroes are still innocent. My heroes didn't lie to America. My heroes didn't embezzle money. My heroes didn't commit atrocities. And I'm like, that's cool, but you're living in an effing dream world. Your opinion, Adam, on his wonderful statements. He talked a little bit more of just things along those lines.
I mean, if you have an original character and you're saying he's progressing as a character, maybe he takes a Watchmen character and is goes with it. But this is Batman, whose core
and
about
Superman he brought that up in the thing too. But that's a core part. It's just, as you can imagine, many people have been like, no, you're wrong.
I think what he's trying to backpedal, because if he made it a point in the movie that's there's a reason Batman is killing now because he's had enough, that I think the audience would go with him more, but he just has him killing for no reason.
That's an important point I bring up. I wrote down just some of my thoughts so I remember them. First, this is so dumb that somehow we're still talking about this so long after this movie. But whatever, I want to talk about it just because he brought it up, and I want to, since he can't defend himself, I'm going to talk crap about what he said. But it's like you were saying that in initial interviews about Batman versus Superman, people asked him, so your Batman kills, and he said, well, no, he just kind of kills by proxy. He doesn't really kill. So this is a total, 180, clearly just doesn't know what he's talking about. And also I stand by that in his movie, at first he kills in an interesting way, which is sometimes that happens in Batman movies when people decide to make him kill, but at least it's interesting. But then he just the machine guns come out and he just shoots 4 cars, and it's boring to watch. So he doesn't even do that well. And again, the backpedaling you said does not hint to that. I just feel like he doesn't know what he's talking about anymore, and I'm surprised he was this angry about it to talk.
Yeah, he needs to move on. Make something good, and then we'll forget about it.
Yeah, I don't, honestly, as a filmmaker, I've never been a big fan of him, and this just furthers I don't think he's that great at actual filmmaking.
If he had a good script, I think he could do some good stuff with it.
Yeah. But... Because, another thing is, people don't like the whole Batman not killing thing. Because he talks about, my characters are innocent. He's like, it's fine if you're a child that wants to believe these characters are innocent. People don't like Batman because not killing makes him innocent. Batman does many not innocent things. It's interesting because that's a part of his character, that's where he personally draws the line. It's also a relation to his parents.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with innocence. I don't know why he thinks, also... I don't know what happened to him recently about lying to America and embezzling money that he felt the need to. I guess
it's probably some headcanon that Bruce Wayne embezzles.
Is he saying that because the idea is that Bruce Wayne is rich, not just that he's embezzling it from his company. It's no, he's has so many trust funds as a child. I don't know if that's what he was getting at, but then also I don't know, lying to America, just Superman secret. I don't know. He's just spouting things off, and also like because beyond that, that's an interesting part of Batman's character that he clearly doesn't understand. And also then for Superman, I always think I was fine with them doing a killing at the end of Man of Steel. I think it was done in a dumb scene, but I don't care if like if he has a first moment like that and then he learns from it.
Yeah.
That's cool. But then he didn't. And so, but the other interesting thing about having Superman not kill is like in a fight, that's what is the real weakness, is because he has to be constantly holding back, letting himself take hits that he shouldn't be taking, because he's just trying not to cripple or kill this person he's fighting,
Yeah.
because that's why a Superman fight should be interesting, or else, like a lazy writer, you just use kryptonite, which is my bottom line of like when people don't know what makes Superman like, you can still have fights that are interesting because he's constantly backpedaling because he's trying not to overexert himself. That's interesting, and Zack Snyder doesn't understand that
Yeah.
either. And also, my other thing is my realization of kind of what you were saying earlier about what were you saying with kind of like if it's an original character, or what were you saying with that? Like if it's
Well, like he's talking like it's a character he developed that he's trying to make evolve,
yes.
and it's like no, this is a
My bottom line that I came to with this is Snyder never understood these characters. He saw them when people offered him the job of saying, "Oh, these are other superhero characters, and this is how my superheroes would behave."
yeah.
He didn't look at it like, "Oh, I'm getting to make a Batman or a Superman." He's like, "Oh, superheroes," because Watchmen is literally about like putting them in these circumstances where they're just murderers and terrible people.
Mhm.
Like that's their characters. Like he just thought like, oh well, they're superheroes, and then once you have a superhero, I can choose what to do with them. And I don't. I just think from the beginning he didn't actually understand. Whenever people ask like, what comics do you read or something, he's like, oh, I really liked The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, like just the Frank Millers that every director that ever makes a Batman movie says like, oh yeah, I loved those.
Yeah.
But no, there's no like ever showing any love for like the character or anything. And I think that just really shows that. Anyway, I think it's fun that he is still so effing passionate, as he would put it. Just, I
It
couldn't
sounds like
believe.
he's just mad of people talking about it, so he just comes at him real
That's what it
hard.
sounds like. He's just mad that people keep getting on to him about it. But hey, don't don't bring it up. Just you've perpetuated it. It's fun. So let's move into some more lighthearted just headlines we've got here. Did you hear Apple is doing a streaming service now? Adding into the mix of never-ending content streaming services?
Video streaming?
Like original
Oh,
programming, like Netflix and Hulu and
no,
Amazon.
I did
It's
not.
called Apple TV Plus. Everyone's doing the Plus now. That's a big Disney Plus. That was the one I didn't mention. So Apple TV Plus, because there's a new app called Apple TV that they talked about, and then they're like, "This is where you'll get Apple TV Plus, our paid service." They did not say how much it costs, and they've said really very few things about it, other than like some of the projects that are coming to it. But it sounds like it's just another streaming service, which I say is unfortunate because usually in the past, not recently, Apple was the one who like redoes the system in ways that we don't think of.
Mm.
But it sounds exactly just like yet another streaming service.
What they need to do is start bundling packages, and that's how it's gonna
That's
advance.
what I've always said. Be a cable provider for streams. You
Yeah.
need someone who just does that because. But then it's becoming cable essentially. It's just gonna become the same thing except not scheduled. Like, but it's gonna be structured the same eventually because there will just be a bunch of. It'll be like in the '80s when there were like six major networks, and
Yeah.
you just dealt with them. And you had to choose how that worked, and someone eventually like bundled them together. It's I don't know. It's so just so many, and some of these ideas I'm gonna read through like what a few of the ones I found interesting that are their original programs are coming, but some of them sound interesting. But I don't need more subscriptions. I don't. I have Netflix because that was like the original. Who knows how long I'll have it now that the Netflix Marvel shows are gone. Really, I mean, I have Prime because I have Amazon Prime for shipping purposes.
Yeah.
It's a family account, Got them that student discount with the.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then maybe when Disney Plus comes along, you gotta get that.
if it's there are some nice things, but I don't want more subscriptions. Anyway, here's what they're offering. Spielberg's in on it. Have you heard of Amazing Stories?
No.
It's from the 80s, an anthology fantasy sci-fi series, just like random, like, kind of anthology sci-fi or fantasy stories that Spielberg was making back in the 80s.
Oh.
And Apple's like, hey, revive it for Apple TV Plus. And so that's happening now. So they get to slap his, they're having their big press conference. They got to slap the Spielberg face up on the screen and be like, look who's in our corner. Even though, like, a week before, he was talking about how streaming is, like, so much lesser than film.
Yeah.
I don't think we covered that really much at all in our podcast because it just was kind of.
I just saw a headline.
Yeah, he was one of the kind of like it's a TV movie people, I think, a little bit. But then I heard that was a misquote, so yeah, who cares? But so that's interesting. I mean, I'm always for a unique anthology because it's.
Yeah.
But there might be a.
Twilight Zone. It's coming back.
You might see we got another anthology coming up here. There's something called The Morning Show, which is apparently a drama about making morning shows, just how chaotic that can be. Which sounds weird, but like again, Mad Men, the premise is like, the basic premise is advertising executives.
Yeah.
And that's a good show. So it's got Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston, and Steve Carell starring.
Oh.
So that's
Anchorman 3.
Yeah. We got a new Anchorman thing, but that could be an interesting look at like I don't know what goes into a morning show. I'm sure they get up very early. Yeah. That sounds hard.
The premise sounds interesting.
Yeah.
If it's good, I would maybe think about going to an illegal site.
Yeah, going to an illegal site. That's my situation with the DC streaming service, as I've documented on this podcast. We've got one called See, SEE, like site, like see.
Oh, that's not a good title.
What?
I don't know. That's not a good title.
So, it's a sci-fi kind of thing, I guess. Yeah. Hundreds of years ago, there was a virus that started on Earth, and it killed pretty much all humans. Only a few million are still around, and it still affected them in that everyone's blind. No one can see. And that was hundreds of years ago, so now people are like, could we ever see? That's kind of a description I read. And it's
Oh, like they think it's a myth that we
yeah, like
see?
they're like, could we really see in the past? Like, I don't know, because like it's been generations since anyone's been able to see.
And then someone gets born who can see?
If that's not in the description I read, but who knows what they do with it. It's got Jason Momoa and Alfre Woodard, who's Mariah from Luke Cage. No. The main yeah, okay, you got it. There we go. While you're sipping your iced tea. So that's interesting. I mean, it could be good or it could be garbage. There's nothing to go on there.
I'm not excited about that.
Yeah, they're really just letting you know they have content.
Yeah, I'm glad they have content.
Yeah. This one caught my eye. It's called Little America because it's written by Kumail Nanjiani and Emily V. Gordon, as in Big Sick.
I'll see that.
Those two. Yeah, exactly. You don't even know what it is. It's a true story kind of anthology. Again, they like their anthologies of like immigrant stories in the U.S. And it's just an anthology of true stories. And I like their writing, so
yeah.
I'll be honest, that's one of the ones I'm more interested in just because I love The Big Sick, as I believe we both have talked about before. It was nominated in our normies of like 20, whatever, 18,
17.
whatever, 17. Okay, I don't know my years, but that's a fantastic movie if anyone hasn't seen it. I mean, yeah, that sounds interesting. As long as just because I know Hollywood and anything that relates in any way to politics can get preachy very quickly. I just don't want it to become that.
I don't want it to get preachy or too serious. I want it to feel sort of lighthearted while still touching on.
Yeah, well, I'm okay if it's like real, like yeah, they went through like some rough stuff, but
yeah, but
don't be like
humor.
You don't need to be depressing.
Yeah, I want some humor in there too.
Because again, The Big Sick. For those that don't know, is a movie about a relationship, and then they're having a fight, and the girl goes into a coma, and he has to deal with the girl's parents. So it's like a very dark premise, but it's a really light and enjoyable movie a lot of the time. So I'm hoping they know how to balance tones. I trust them.
That's the word I was looking for.
There we go.
Balancing tones.
And I mean, so that's one of the ones I'm most interested in just because I like them. And the last one was weird. This is called Helpsters. Big Bird came out on stage and introduced a new Muppet, whatever you call them. Are Muppets only the specific Muppets, or do you still call all of those kind of puppets Muppets?
I think Muppets are specific.
Okay. Anyway, so there's a puppet called Cody who runs this show called Helpsters, and it's a kids show, and it's teaching kids how to code. As in,
I might need that.
I certainly don't know how. I think that could be because I bet like there's not gonna be a single kid that watches it, but every like kind of millennial who's realizing that like, oh, I missed out on that and
Yeah.
it's really important now. They're just all gonna flock to Helpsters to learn how coding works, so that they don't get all their jobs taken by the Gen Z. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, that's a weird thing because they say like because it's a language like kids need to grow up knowing, and I'm like, yes and no, like because I understand like they're equating it, I guess, to like language shows you'd watch as a kid that like teach you like an actual language. But this one, like if you don't want to, there's a lot of jobs that don't involve coding. I'll put it that way, but it still seems useful to know some.
Yeah, and it's not gonna. I bet it's not gonna teach you coding, but it'll get you more familiar with like
Yeah,
what it
it
is.
seemed to talk more about like also because like the mindset and like the process of thinking that is required for coding for kids. So I mean, it sounds nice. So, and if it really does do an okay job at teaching some basic coding, maybe I'll watch it so I can find out how to code. So yeah, that's what good old Apple. I already forgot the name. Apple TV Plus is bringing to the table in like autumn, maybe, or maybe they said it was might actually roll out sooner, like May or something. But anyway, they'll roll it out. I'm sure they'll announce the price sometime. They didn't give a ton of details again how it works. I don't think their stock did super well after that. Most Apple press conferences, now that I think about it, the stock always takes a drop after the press conference because
Oh really?
everyone's waiting for like, yeah, show us like a new way of thinking about technology, and they don't do that anymore. And so everyone's just like, maybe I'll sell my few stocks
Yeah.
I have. But I mean, they're fine. They still make so much money. But yeah, that's interesting. One more thing that we might have to subscribe to. Let's move on, of course, to some Marvel news because that will be forever, and I'm sure that will never end anytime soon. Avengers Endgame, if you didn't hear, the runtime was officially confirmed at 3 hours and 2 minutes.
Yes.
I know you wanted that 3 hour mark. No intermission.
Oh.
I feel like if it was like more than you'd want an intermission, I feel like when you're at 3, it's kind of like, it could go either way.
Yeah. Nowadays you can get away with a.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people being like, I don't want to be taken out of this. Like, 3 hours, I'll just hold my pee. I'll make it through.
Yeah. People are gonna need to bring those medical jugs.
Just get some astronaut, adult
Yeah.
diaper things to wear. But so yeah, that's all I have for that news story. They confirmed it's just made it over 3 hours. I'm confident in them. I'm glad the studio didn't do like a because they clearly trust the Russos to be like, yeah, that's if your movie's 3 hours, it's 3 hours.
Yeah. At this point, the longer it is, probably. Well, I won't say. I was gonna say the longer it is, more people will see it. But the longer it is, more hardcore fans will be excited.
Yeah, because it's like there's more for me.
Yeah.
There's more I will enjoy. And after that, at some point, they say they're making. We've talked about this a little. I've like mentioned the name Marvel's Eternals movie. The Eternals, which are like a Jack Kirby like space race of almost pretty much superhuman and immortal beings of spacefaring nature.
Beings or beans?
Beinges. I was afraid I was about to spell it wrong on the podcast there, but because it's supposed to be like these near mortal beings that are maybe like we see them over like several generations of like kind of seeing different things progress. They're usually known to fight people called the Deviants, apparently, who are like there are advanced races, but they develop some gene and syndrome that makes them like I don't know evil. I guess it was kind of hard to find information on it. I did find out that apparently Thanos is said to be one who he's a deviant. He has a deviant gene.
Oh.
Because if you don't know in the comics, he's from Titan, and regular people from Titan don't look all big and purple. They look in fact quite human because that's what you had to do. That's what they did back then. Like so, everyone else of his race is normal, and he's like the freak.
Oh.
And supposedly that's because of the gene. I don't know if they're gonna go with that because that also might be kind of dumb in a movie. To like, there's no point to go through that at this stage of like the Marvel universe. But
They can throw it in one of their Disney Plus shows.
yeah, put it on there. But supposedly it's getting news again because Angelina Jolie seems to be attached to this film all of a sudden, and that's gotten people somewhat excited. Does that
Sure.
excite you?
I'm not a huge Angelina Jolie fan. I
Okay,
don't
thank
dislike
goodness.
her.
That was no. My opinion was like, I mean, I know her name.
Yeah.
She's been in. She voiced Tigress in Kung Fu Panda. I liked that. That's all I could think of her from. I feel like I've never been super impressed. by an Angelina Jolie movie.
I feel like I liked her in something at least. I can't think of what it would be.
But it just continues on Marvel pulling all of the big name actors in slowly into these ridiculous comic book sci-fi movies
Yeah.
that like you never thought would be in it, like Jake Gyllenhaal, in Spider-Man this summer and all that. It's so interesting. A lot of people. It's supposed to be like Icarus and Circe are maybe the two main characters. These are all the theories going around, which are um, they're the Eternals that are kind of in a romantic arc, and they both. You might think like those sound like Greek myth names. Well, they are because these immortals at one point were on Earth and essentially were the myths. They
Hmm.
I noticed a lot of the Eternals were Greek myths. Was what they did that kind of thing where it's like oh, the Minotaur was a deviant, and Icarus came to fight it in Crete. And then he stayed and had a son that he named Icarus, the one that flew too close to the sun, because at one point he gave Icarus wings, his own robotic wings, so he could fly. And he's like, I'll teach you how to use them, but first I gotta go fight the deviants. And he took too long, so his son is like, I'm gonna fly on my own and go help. And then he flew too high, and then he died. And that's why he took his son's name as Icarus, which is really
I like the idea of them like inspiring Greek myths, but
yeah.
I don't need that specific.
Exactly. Like because then like Circe was also supposed to be Circe of the Odyssey. If you don't know, like the witch who like was with
Yeah.
Odysseus for a while, and like I'm cool with because she's supposed to have a lot of powers, so that makes sense. I'd love if they touch on the fact that they've like been to Earth several times in the past. They've watched us evolve, maybe from like single little tribes and then like into like sprawling,
Yeah.
metropolises and all that, but then also they've inspired stuff. So that could be a cool way to take it.
Yeah.
Could be interesting. And Angelina Jolie will probably be there. Maybe as Circe, maybe not, because these are all rumors for the most part.
Yeah. I'm fine with her being in it, but she's not gonna be the thing that draws me to
Yeah,
it.
I'm not. Yeah, she's not a ticket seller for me.
Yeah.
She's not. I'm still waiting for them to get Leonardo DiCaprio in a Marvel Cinematic Universe
Yeah.
movie. I don't know what he would play, but if they can get him, that's when I say you can like the whole like all the producers can like bust open like an old wine and be like we did it like
Yeah.
we got like the actor to be in a silly comic book movie.
Yeah. I think if anything, it'd just be a one-off villain, which
Yeah,
I think would be really cool anyway.
yeah, you do a good one with them.
Probably like Gyllenhaal's gonna be.
Mm-hmm. It's then again I'd love if Gyllenhaal like
Gyllenhaal just has a blast, and he's like, "Can I do
yeah,
five more?"
can I do five more or he sticks around because Michael Keaton seemed to enjoy his time as the Vulture. And what if now like because if you ever what if you actually took your time to build to a Sinister Six? Can you imagine like them
Heck
working
yeah.
together? How great that would be!
That'd be dope.
I'd be so excited if you actually built to that. Anyway, if we're getting off topic here from our exciting news stories, A Quiet Place 2 is officially seeming to be happening. I just thought it was kind of in development, maybe, but for one, before I get to what the other news piece was about that, what do you feel about having a second one of A Quiet Place?
It better not have Emily Blunt or the kids in it. It better be like completely separate.
Well, that's unfortunate because they will return. Um, so that's unfortunate because I
Are
didn't.
they gonna be like teenagers or something, or is it gonna be directly after?
I mean, it'll likely be like a 3 year age gap since that's how long it will take the movie to come out, and the kids will have aged that much.
Eh.
So it's apparently they cast a new person joining the existing three cast members, Killian Murphy.
Oh,
You might know as Scarecrow from The Dark Knight or trilogy, because he's in two of them at least.
yeah,
And then he's in Inception. He's in Dunkirk. I really like him as an actor. He can play very like he's one of those characters that like he can turn out to be good when I didn't expect it, or he can like surprise me with how evil he can
yeah,
be. So I find that exciting. Because he could be like someone with a dark past who's good, or he could like try to be helping, but then it could turn out he screws him over. That's the only thing that gives me kind of hope because again, I really liked A Quiet Place. We both enjoyed it quite a bit,
yeah.
didn't we?
I
Yeah.
enjoyed it a lot.
And it's just I felt like it was good to end there. And if they were gonna do another, it should be a different people.
Yeah,
But then it seems like you're kind of milking the same thing. So hopefully Killian Murphy just whatever his character's like plot is injects something unique into it.
yeah. I'd make it less about the monsters,
Yeah,
ideally.
make it because yeah we left off and they just kind of did the shotgun pump like we're gonna kill like 20 of these things and So I guess they survived that if the returning three cast members is a thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, real quick, we got to bring back up. I think I brought this up last week. New Mutants. Because I brought up quickly. I'm like, is this movie ever coming out? Now people are really worrying. Will this ever come out? Because it's scheduled to come out August. Last they talked about it. The stars have no idea what's going on. The actors in it. This is directed by Josh Boone, by the way. For those who don't know, it's like a weird kind of side mutant story of like with horror elements of like people finding their mutant powers for the first time and being experimented on. So the actors are so confused. Like they've been asking each other. They had like her name is Macy Williams from Game of Thrones. She's in it, and she's like we are so confused. I was asking the other actors, like, do you know if our movie's coming out? Because they finished filming that in 2017, by the way. And this is 2019. So what the heck? That's been like sitting there. And apparently, like, they years ago when they stopped filming, like, yeah, we're done with principal photography, but we're gonna do some reshoots, just like some kind of make certain scenes scarier, which is normal for movies. Macy Williams said there still have not been those reshoots. And everyone thought those reshoots had already happened, is my problem. So now it's like, wait. So they stopped production, it sounds like, if they didn't do the reshoots. Or did they just be like, we'll just put it on Disney Plus, don't worry about the reshoots. I like, don't put any more money into it? Is that what they're saying?
I'm thinking that's what happened.
Oh no. That's so unfortunate. I think it could have been a fine premise, but it's just... It's weird now, because if there's not going to be any reshoots, and like, the problem also is, it was a lot of young actors and actresses. And now it's been 2-3 years. So if you do reshoots now, it's like, oh wait, these kids are a foot taller than they were in the previous scene. Yeah, I don't know what to do about this movie.
I was never too excited about it, so
I didn't like the trailer, that's for sure. But Josh Boone, he directed The Fault in Our Stars, apparently. I haven't seen that, but I've heard it made some people cry.
It was a fine movie.
Okay.
For what it was.
So now it's just even more, who knows if that film's going to happen. And I'm really curious to see. To jump real quick over to DC news. Apparently Jai Courtney in an interview said that he'd be going soon to start filming The Suicide Squad. So they're bringing him back as Captain Boomerang.
So
he played Captain Boomerang in the first Suicide Squad, so people know. And people liked him.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything because it's a poorly written film, but he's doing the most with it, I feel. What were you about to say?
Yeah, it seems like DC is completely abandoning any sort of continuity or...
Because this, again, at first I was like, last time, I'm like, okay, so this is pretty rebooty, but then I'm like, okay, wait, not quite that rebooty, because they're bringing him back?
They're just pretending none of the movies ever happened.
Because they're just like, what works, what didn't, like, let's mash it together. I'm fine if you don't make me... Because we talked about bringing the same Amanda Waller back would be fine, stuff like that. Because here's my one thing I want. I want him to throw more boomerangs. Because I can guarantee you in Suicide Squad, he threw at most 3 boomerangs in that entire movie. And because he just started punching people. Like, all the fight scenes in that movie are just punching people. And I'm like, you literally have so many trick boomerangs. That's your thing. And he threw like 1 at the end, I remember. I think 1 near the beginning, 1 in a flashback scene. That's all I've got. There's 1 when he tries to fake escape. There's the 1 in the flashback at the bank. And there's 1 explosive one he throws that does nothing near the end fight. So, yeah, as long as he's back and throws more boomerangs, I'll be happy. He also said the movie will be different in the interview. He's like, yeah, like I'm doing Suicide Squad again, but this one's gonna be very different. And I'm like, good.
Yeah. It seems like they're not grounding themselves in seriousness too much.
Yeah. I mean, works for me. So that blew through all of our regular news headlines already. Because this is probably gonna be a shorter podcast. I don't think I mentioned that before. But we're all gonna talk about, because what came out this weekend, Adam? Dumbo. Tim Burton directed live action Dumbo. I heard it wasn't good. It's certainly... its Rotten Tomato score is 50%. I wrote it down here. That's about what I expected. It only made 45 million domestic opening weekend, 116 worldwide. Its budget was 170 million. So that's gonna be they're gonna have to work for making back money on that one.
I'm sure the Chinese like elephants.
Especially if they're CG. They
Yeah.
love Chinese markets and CG and Green Book. So I don't know what they like
Yeah.
actually anymore. But in honor of Dumbo coming out, and since we didn't see it, so we're not going to talk about Dumbo. We just decided to talk about. You could label this section as underrated old Disney animated movies, or more accurately, the animated Disney movies we remember fondly but haven't seen in a while. And I also have the subcategory of naming this the Disney I dare you to try to make a live action out of some of these. And
Oh,
maybe they'll get to it if they keep running out of.
they'll probably get to some of mine.
They'll get to some of mine too. So I want to hear one of yours first. We each came up with, I think, five.
Yes.
Let's hope we don't overlap.
My first one was Hunchback of Notre Dame.
I have not seen that in a very long time, and I think it's been kind of in piecemeal anyway.
Yeah, I watched it more recently than some of these other ones.
Okay.
And so it held up very well. The songs are all pretty good.
Nice.
And it's very emotional towards the end when he's like in front of the church, like screaming sanctuary. That's a powerful scene. That's most of why I like it.
I remember one song I really liked, the like this Hellfire one where like this priest is like being tempted and he's like looking at a fire and like seeing his own image burning and like seeing like the church condemning him. It's
the
like
priest is really interesting character.
yeah, because like he's the bad guy, but it's like it's very clearly this like disillusioned, tempted man who's like covering up for his own like sins. Like he's clearly not a good guy, but he's I guess it's like condemning people is what makes him ignore what's wrong with him. I don't know. I always remember that being an interesting character, but
yeah, he's a cool part of it.
I don't remember much else to be honest.
And it's just like a tragic kind of story with some redemption in it.
Yeah, it's nice. I'll go to one of mine real quick. I remember very fondly, might not be good, a little movie called Brother Bear.
I don't remember seeing it.
Okay. I remember my brother and I watched it a few times. Let me just tell you, it's Joaquin Phoenix is the lead character.
Oh.
I didn't realize till very recently. It's also got Rick Moranis, Michael Clark Duncan in the voice cast, so it's got some notables. I remember it being very fun. The basic plot that I can remember is they're like a tribe, and like this guy who doesn't respect nature a ton, like to save his brother at one point, he's fighting a bear and he kills a mama bear. And like the nature spirits are like, yo, you need to respect nature more. So they turn him into a bear. And he's traveling, trying to get back to like where he needs to go, I think to become human again, something like that. And he becomes kind of a big brother bear to this baby bear, who then you also realize is the baby bear whose mom he killed. And it's very unfortunate. It's like, it's, because there's, then you better believe there's a, you know, a reveal scene too, like when the baby bear realized it's sad. It's real sad. But I remember it being like lots of really fun side characters that were like comedic and like there's so many things I don't remember about this movie, but I remember enjoying it and it had some really cool like when the like spirits of nature like you know change him like the animation's really cool and it gets all Aurora-y because they're in the north or south north. Let's go with north.
North probably.
Yeah. So you never saw that one. You never saw Brother Bear.
I might have, but it would have been when it came out, so I'd have been 4.
It's not one people ever talk about, so I'm just waiting for the live action remake. What do you got for me after that?
So this is the main one. I don't know if it's good or not.
Oh boy.
The Goofy movie.
I feel like we've talked about this before with other friends as well.
Yeah.
I remember it very fondly.
I have several scenes like burned into my memory, like the Bigfoot scene.
Bigfoot scene.
And then
this was like they're like we're gonna give Goofy his own animated movie, like just him, and isn't because it's his son Max and he on a field a road trip.
Yeah.
Gosh, so like yeah, you were saying the Bigfoot scene,
and then the like where ferrets on their head.
I barely remember that.
It's not a ferret, but it's like one of the like a possum. They wear possums on their heads, and it's like a restaurant you go to and.
Okay, now I'm remembering. I remember like Max was trying to impress some girl or something in his class, and like there's something about like there's an artist like a musical artist that he was trying to like get on stage with.
I think. Okay, so okay. I get this one and Extremely Goofy Movie mixed up a lot.
That's the one with skateboarding, I thought.
Yeah. So I think that one is Goofy Movie.
Okay, yeah.
The musician.
Yeah. And then he gets on stage. I remember it being a fun little father son like heartwarming movie.
Yeah, I remember liking it a lot. I like the Max and Goofy dynamic. I
Yeah,
remember Goofy was annoying at parts and was
yeah,
just like how ridiculous he was getting, but as a
yeah,
child I liked it.
yeah. It's for the children. Like I just remember them like going back and forth on like radio stations, like a lot of father son things. Like, cause I think he tricks his father like on the directions, of, like going to where this concert's gonna be instead of going to where the
That's
father
right.
wants to
That's
be.
what it
So
is.
lots of conflict. What really accepting each other as father and son. Good stuff, my dude. Here's my next movie. You ever watch Treasure Planet?
Yes, but I don't remember anything about it.
Well, I remember certain things about it. One, it was cool, weird pirate fused with sci-fi. It was that was very strange. This pirate punk going on. There was like spaceships that were pirate ships. Because for those that don't know, it is Treasure Island, except in space, where it's a planet instead of an island that has the treasure. It's a classic story of a kid gets futuristic orb that projects a map and only he knows the code to open it, gets on a ship to go find it, and you better believe mutinies abound and allegiances and friendships are tested. Specifically, I remember like the guy who was supposed to kind of be the bad guy, who's like on the ship, who's supposed to lead the mutiny. Like really, they bonded a lot, and he's like, well, the plan from the beginning was steal the orb once we get there, kill them all. But then like he really is like, I have to choose now between these things. And I just
Mm-hmm.
remember having really nice dynamic characters, being some cool sci-fi as a kid, seeing all these spaceships. I remember he had like this rocket board, like a rocket on the back and like a sail he worked on the back to
I
do
remember
dimension. He
that.
was flying around on it, and there were some cool scenes. Justin Gordon-Levitt is the main character of
Oh,
that. I didn't know that. I spent time looking up who acted in these because some of them I'm like, yeah, that seems familiar. Also had Emma Thompson in it, and Martin Short. But I just remember that being a fun sci-fi romp of treasure
yeah,
hunting.
I'm sure. I'm
It's,
sure it's a hoot and a half.
and I mean, you could maybe do a live action of that. That'd be you don't
There's,
you don't need to, but
yeah,
I'm just saying they might.
there's. That's a good thing to do before you do some other ones, I would say.
Yeah. What else you got for me?
Um, so if I this has probably made a little bit of a comeback in
Hmm.
terms of relevance, but Hercules was one that was in heavy rotation for me.
I love that Hercules movie. Cause yeah, I think it is coming back around as you were
Yeah.
saying, but that's one of my favorites actually. It's got one of my favorite Disney songs in it. The I will find my way. I can go the distance. That one is just him
Yeah.
believing in himself, man.
Yeah, and it gets kind of dark at times when he gets real beat down by
Yeah.
the whatever it's called. What's the three-headed thing called?
The Hydra?
Yeah.
The Hydra attack. Also, there's a Cyclops that beats him down real bad at one point. This
Mm-hmm.
giant Cyclops gets let out and just because he like gave up his power. Oh, it gets
Oh yeah.
crazy, and
It gets creepy
he
with
goes
his.
to hell.
Yeah, it gets real
He
creepy.
goes to like the depths of Hades. Like there's like souls sucking his life out. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was. Oh, I love whoever plays Hades in that. Do you remember who that is? Because I love the
Oh
voice.
no, I don't
Let me
remember.
Google real quick. Talk more about it. Entertain the
Uh,
audience.
but yeah, it has Danny DeVito in
Danny DeVito as the satyr that teaches him everything.
one of his best performances.
Like no joke. Like it's
Yeah.
a great performance. Hold on IMDb.
Who plays Hercules?
Tate Donovan.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Um, James Woods.
I recognize him for sure.
That face is so familiar. What the heck has he been in? Oh, I'm sure I know him from things. But anyway, I love Hades in that. He was always
Yeah.
wonderful. Also, one of the I've heard like people as it's coming back around be like, because Aladdin and a lot of movies like that, like the love arc in those characters is very not existent really. They're
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh, okay, and then they just fall in love with the bad boy. But like Hercules and Meg, like they genuinely like, because she's trying to trick him, and he's like this kind of really underneath nerdy guy, and he's like, oh yeah, she's pretty, but he's even trying to like not let her just seduce
Yeah.
him, and she even has a song about how like she's like, wait, I'm not starting to like how like of an actual good person he is. I have a mission. It's like a
Yeah.
genuinely like interesting characters.
Yeah, Meg's like actually can take care of herself if she needs to.
Yeah, it's. I just remember that being a being a real good one. I remember
I think it's
loving
one
it.
of the better ones.
I
At least
do.
of the '90s.
I include that among like good animated Disney movies. But I'm glad you brought it up. I got lost really talking about that one, just remembering all of the training montages and. All right, here's my other one. This one has quite a cult following these days. Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
That's the one I get confused with Treasure Planet a lot.
It's very similar in like I can tell why. First of all, I did see it had a 49% Rotten Tomatoes, so I could very clearly not remember it being as good as I remember. First of all, since clearly knowing actor names is what I'm doing this segment, Michael J. Fox
I
is
do
Milo,
remember
the main
that.
character. But I like the story. Also, Leonard Nimoy is in there
Oh,
as the king of Atlantis. But it's a basic story, and I wouldn't mind if this got remade or adapted into something because it's an interesting story. There's a lot of Atlantis going on with Aquaman right now, so maybe lay off. But because it's a nerdy guy who's like a professor who like believes Atlantis is real. Like everyone just makes fun of him. He can't get funding. Some rich benefactor is like, no, I believe in. Like I'm gonna send you on a ship and like this sub and go send you to find it. It's really kind of shambled together, a real ragtag group. You know, maybe there's some more mutinies occurring here,
mm.
but they get there and it's cool, and then you know the mutinies happen and they're fighting and there's some magical power in the heart of Atlantis, and maybe I don't remember this as well as I thought I did now that I'm talking about it, but I just remember it one looking really cool, like the animation,
Mm.
like the style of characters. If I'm not mistaken, I heard that it's like the guy who did like the art for it and like character design is the guy who designed like the original Hellboy like art style in comics, which
Oh.
is a very distinctive style. Like if you've seen the actual comics,
Yeah.
and so the character art is wonderful. And I just remember, yeah, that's what I remember most about it, most likely.
Yeah, I've seen pictures recently, and I can attest that I like how it looks.
That's all I got to say about Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Might not be as good as I think, but honestly, people always are remaking these movies that did well. Do you not artistically? It's the movies that weren't good that you should try again because
Yeah.
that means improvement. Like there's probably a better way to tell this story. So there you go. Give me another.
Um. Also, probably still pretty relevant. Lilo and Stitch.
Mm.
I remember liking, though it's
It's
been a while for
been a
me.
long time. All I can remember right now is that I watched a thing about how the ending scene where they're like on a plane and they're like doing some
Mhm.
ducking between mountains that was originally ducking between buildings in the cityscape, but 9/11 happened, and so then they're like,
Ah,
replace buildings with mountains, please. We don't want to fly a plane in a city right now. Anyway,
that's rough. Yeah, 9/11 had people change a lot
there
of
was a
things.
lot of a lot of movies. We should just have a podcast where we talk about all the movies that had to change things thanks to 9/11. Anyway, what were you gonna say about Lilo and Stitch before I sidetracked you?
I just remember I remember very little, so I do remember the characters being very fun and just the dynamic between the little girl and the alien.
Because then the alien like sucked in some of his arms and antenna to make himself seem like just a weird dog, so they
Yeah,
adopted him. and there's and there's the two kind of bumbling sidekicks of the bad guy that like are trying to come
yeah.
get him. And do they end up being good in the end?
They end up
They
having
have
some
they have some
redemption.
redemption arc or something because they help out. I remember liking that, but boy is it foggy to think of Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, the Lilo had an older sister
Yes.
who was doing something. Oh, they're teaching like a luau thing, and that was a big part of like she taught
The
Stitch to
luau,
dance or
right?
something. That's all I remember.
Yeah, that's all you need. Here's one of mine. I remember this movie so well visually. The Sword and the Stone.
I don't think I saw
Disney
that.
made an animated The Sword and the Stone. And I'll tell you why I know this movie so well. I probably watched this a million times because we had the VHS, and here's what we do: when we'd have road trips. When my brother and I were young, we're obnoxious. My parents want us to shut up. We don't have no fancy cars with TVs built in, but what we do have is this tiny, like just foot by foot box of a tube
I had that
TV
exact
with a
thing.
VHS built
Yeah,
into it, and it fit perfectly between car seats, say of the driver and passenger. So they shoved it in, maybe towels to help it kind of really fit in there
yeah,
better, and then they'd pop it in, and so we'd just be huddling tight. It's that tiny curved TV. And we'd watch this like every road trip, possibly multiple times, because you can only bring so much
yeah.
VHS. And you know, as long as there were no bumps in the car, the VHS would play fine. And so we watched this so much. I remember loving it. One I realized as I was reminding myself of the plot, it's not a ton about the sword and the stone. because it's the story of this young 12-year-old King Arthur who's not king yet, so just Arthur. Where what's happened is, the king died, there's no new heir, Sword in the Stone appears, and it's like, oh, whoever pulls it, gets to be the king. And then no one could pull it, so it just kind of is left in a little shrine, like as a legend. They're like, well,
Yeah.
that's stupid sword won't come out of the stone. So years and years later, most of the plot is just Arthur, who is called Wart by Merlin for some reason. I don't remember why, but he's being taught lessons by Merlin. Like Merlin takes him to like tutor him, and the majority of the movie is just like the weird mishaps they get into while he's teaching him things and having him transform into all these different animals to teach him lessons.
Oh.
Which I remember the animation being very delightful, doing the different like animals and stuff like that. But that's the majority of the plot as I was reviewing this. Specifically, what I remember is they get captured at one point by like this witch that's like Merlin's enemy, and so they challenge each other to a transformation battle, and so they're just going back and forth with like dragons, lizards, like trying to always counter each other. And Merlin like outsmarts her, like when she turns into like some dinosaur thing, like he becomes like an infectious virus and like gives her like a disease.
Whoa.
It's like, so I just remember being like, whoa, that's so cool, you outsmarted her, and it was a fun animation. Anyway, eventually Arthur is made a squire to his stepbrother. Merlin, for some reason, was unhappy that he just kind of wanted to be a squire and leaves to Bermuda in the 20th century. Um, Weird. But during tournament, forgets his knight's sword. So he goes, he's like, oh, I need a sword. Oh, there's a sword and a stone over there. Pulls it, brings it to them. They're all like, what the heck? And they go back and they're like, they put it back in. And it's like, it's just some old sword. And everyone else is trying to get it back out now and it won't come out.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, oh, see, easy. And then people back him up and they're like, yeah, he's the king now. And then they're like, hey, you're king. And he's like, this is crazy. But then he gets Merlin to come back and help him and be like, don't worry, it's all going to work out. You're going to have a round table. Might even make a movie about you, kid. And then it ends. And I'm like, wow, the Sword in the Stone was very little part of that movie.
I feel like the reason I wasn't interested in it is because like I already know what happens. He pulls the sword out and he becomes king.
And that's literally just like the end is him. But like the Sword in the Stone doesn't relate much to what happens the majority of the film. But I remember loving it because I watched it 20 million times in the car. So what's your last one?
My final one is one they will probably remake soon. Pinocchio.
Oh, they're gonna remake that so hard.
Yeah,
They're gonna do
make it
so
real
much
hard.
remake into that. Oh no.
But like this was one of the first movies that like genuinely haunted me
Wow.
because there's a
See, I do not remember much at all. Like, I don't even know if I've seen the whole thing.
but there's a scene where he gets turned into a donkey, and just
Ooh.
that whole sequence is like everyone's turning into donkeys,
Is it terrifying?
and it's terrifying.
Some old school Disney is haunting.
Yeah. Like that's probably the worst part, but there's also a scene where he gets swallowed by a whale.
Mm.
That's pretty scary too. They were not afraid to frighten children back then.
Is that the When You Wish Upon a Star movie?
Yeah.
Like, that's where they get their whole jingle from?
Yeah.
Because it goes like the... Like, that's the
Yeah.
song, right? When You Wish Upon a Star. And that's that's a big part of Disney now. It didn't
Yeah.
occur to me that that's kind of their slogan.
It's either their second or third movie, or maybe
Wow.
fourth.
I believe you how haunting it is. I really don't remember. I remember someone turning into a donkey, but
That's
that's what's going to stick with you.
That's the biggest part that I remember.
Yeah. And then here's my last one to finish this off. I'm talking about the Fantasia movies. Did you ever watch the Fantasia movies?
I watched like parts of them, but I don't think I ever watched
These
them the whole
specifically. The original's nice. For me, I think more people know the original, but Fantasia 2000, because they made one in the 40s
Yeah.
and they made one in 1999. They call it 2000 because why not? Fantasia 2000 because the two we alternated between Sword in the Stone, Fantasia 2000 on the car rides. That movie. So for those that don't know, these were movies that Disney they wanted to just take orchestral pieces and just animate something to them. It could be just like side stories, could be like its own just little short film of animation and music with like no words, so it's like very impressive artistically. And it was just breathtaking to watch, and the music was so great. I remember so many to this day, like the Firebird is this one of like this kind of Mother Nature figure, like bringing things, and then like this volcano erupts, and it's like this demon. There's everyone knows like the Night on Bald Mountain, which is where like Satan is like on top of this mountain
Oh,
essentially,
yeah.
and he just like reaps all the souls from a town, and you see him burn them and turn them into demons, and it's like this Disney was a weird guy, but there's so many others that are just like classics. There's one that's it's just like these whales that are like learning to fly, and it's just them floating through the air, and like there's like a little bit of plot of like the baby getting lost and trying to make its way back to like its mom and dad. It's just breathtaking like images that I remember to this day. I remember so many of these songs to the day. Like I'll hear them and I'll be like, "Oh, it's that one when they're doing this animation in the city, and it's that cool style where it's kind of, and it takes me back like no one would believe." And also because there were also some 3D in there. Some they'd mix with 3D. Some were just like Pixar style like short 3D animations in 2000. This is obviously, and I think like I'd love even if they tried to maybe do another one of these at some point.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, as I learned from Mary Poppins Returns, because they had to pull people out of retirement to do the 2D sections of that movie, or like the 2D animation, because they don't have anyone that knows how to
Yeah.
do 2D animation anymore. And I'm fine if they want to do some 3D, but I like the doing both because I think that's what was cool because it was like showcasing different animation styles was what I loved about Fantasia. It's what made me love animation probably really because I watched the hell out of those.
Yeah.
And yeah, so bring some of those guys out of retirement again, make them animate a whole
Just
thing.
have like a class where you get some old guys to teach all
Yeah,
the 20
just
year
teach
olds.
other 20-year-olds that just want to do computer stuff
Yeah.
now, and it's like, no, we have cells, we like paint on them. But so that's my last one that I'd love to actually see again because I love
Yeah.
those so much.
I probably should see the 40s one at least.
Yeah, it's been I don't remember the 40s one well. I know I've seen like bits of it, but I remember the 2000s so well because of VHS.
Yeah.
And it's so many breathtaking things. I recommend lots of people to try those. And with that, we can call that a close of this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed us talking about these Disney movies we clearly don't remember as well as we thought we did.
But
And
if they sound interesting, you should go see them.
yeah,
and
super, check them out.
write Disney so they
Here's
can
one.
remake
Did you
them.
ever see Home on the Range?
No.
It was these three female cows trying to get their farm back.
I remember the trailer really well.
I don't know if it was good, but I certainly watched it. Maybe check that out. Develop your own opinion. And yeah, that's all I got to say there. Anything you've got to add?
Don't keep making live action, Disney.
We've told them that so many times. I don't think they're listening, frankly, because they haven't stopped. Anyway, we're going to call this an end. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Go see Shazam. I hear it's good.
Is it out?